Council, thank you very much for your attendance to the special council meeting. We're addressing the budget of 2025. I want to thank staff as well for their presence. We will call the meeting to order at 9:32. Council, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Saying none, the agenda is before you. There is a note there that the annual repayment limit, slide 7, and Mooresville Museum protection and maintenance, slide 17, be added to item 4.1, 2025 budget, and that the special budget meeting agenda of council dated March 20th be accepted as amended. Is there a mover and a seconder to that? Councilor McCollum, is there a second to that? Councilor Mick, questions? All in favor? Motion's carried. Mike's going to be a few minutes late, council, and we'll finally accept him when he comes in. We are at budget presentation. Matt, this might be your cue in here. So we'll give the floor to you, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all. Round 2 of our presentation here. The agenda for today, we're going to first talk about the wastewater budget that we didn't go through on the first round. I will be asking for a resolution on that because we need to make some way and get going on a few items. All right, and then we'll move on to our discussions. A couple minor changes that we had on the operating budget since our last discussion. We'll talk about the tax rate stabilization reserve. We'll also go into the other reserves and talk about the annual repayment limit. Then we'll jump into council grants. There'll be a good discussion on that, and I'm hoping to finalize what our grants will be for this year. And then we'll pass the mic over to Mr. DeVos to talk about the Glencoe outlet drain. And then we'll jump back in talking about tax impacts and some proposed alternatives. And hopefully we'll get a resolution at the end. If not, we'll discuss next steps. Okay. So moving on to wastewater. Some highlights from the details that you have in your green binders. No surprise, the rates have gone up. That was purely from our study back in December that we presented. Those rates obviously increased quite substantially for roughly 289,000. Due to that increase in rates, we no longer require reserve usage, so that reduced by 52,000. On the expense side, the aqua maintenance for 2025 has increased by 104,000. Our cost to purchase the tri-chlorine water has risen by 75,000. The administration fees behind all the operations, just a portion, that has risen by 30,000. And then one new item that we have is improved water meters we plan to start using, and so that has increased our budget by 30,000 there. At this time, I would like to invite Morrow and or is there somebody with Aqua on the line?
Sam's here.
Sam's here? There he is, there's Sam.
I was online and I switched. I was driving through town, so I decided I'd just stop in.
Okay, so in the event that there's any questions on Aqua's expenses, Sam is here, and I'll pass it back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Mac. I think, Sam, do you want to, well, we have this water slide up here. Do you want to start it out or more, or do you want to take the lead on that? I guess you can take the lead in that, and Sam could come in terms of Aqua.
Through you, Mayor, the budget's for days before you, and we're here to answer any questions that you have regarding the budget.
Okay. Council, you can see that costs are up on that. Any discussion that you would like to direct towards our two admins here? Amanda, any concerns you want us to brought forth or anything? Councilor Haggett, please go ahead.
I just like to, through the mayor, to say, I mean, 104,000 is quite an increase per year. Where's the increase? Like, where's it going?
I need Mike to try to set it up. Here.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. So, 104, I'm not sure how that cost is broke down, if that includes capital or not. But I can speak to the increases on the operations side. Just a reminder, the way that the contract works between Aqua and Southwest Middlesex is called a cost plus contract. So any costs incurred in operations is passed on to the municipality. I try to make a very close prediction on what the year's costs are going to be, and then it is it's reconciled at the end of the year. So just for easy numbers, say that I think that the water system is going to cost $100,000. It's obviously more than that, but just for easy money, and it costs 104. That $4,000 is reconciled through the contract. If it costs 96, then Aqua gives back 4. Early in 2024, when Bill 124 was removed, that's the bill that the provincial government mandated. I forget exactly how it worked, but it essentially didn't allow the unions to negotiate. That bill was rescinded, and the government came back with a significant payroll increase. It was a 9.5% increase in pay. That was not budgeted for or part of my cost estimate in 2024. And those costs get passed on to the municipality because of the style of contract we have. So that 104,000, I believe, is across the 3 projects that Aqua runs. So that's water, the entire water system, the Wardsville sewage system, and the Glencoe distribution system. So I know 104,000, that is a big number, but that is across 3 different systems. And does that also include increase in my capital budget? So like there's also an increase. Every year I submit a 6-year rolling capital plan to Morrow, and adjustments had to be made for that for just like CPI or the cost of living. Things have gone up a lot in price, and I try to capture those cost increases so that when you have meetings like this, that you can be budgeted for. So yeah, the increases on the operations side of things wouldn't be 104,000. I believe that's probably mostly increasing capital without looking at the numbers. But yeah, the biggest increase we see on the operations side was a 9.5% increase in salaries, and that is a provincial government unionized increase. And those costs are passed along to the municipality.
Thank you, Sam. Does that clarify it?
I think so.
Okay, that's great. Okay, any further questions? Yes, Councilor Fink, please go ahead. Who are you directing the question to?
Sam.
Sam, okay.
Just to follow up, so you mentioned 9.5%, so what about the following year?
So the 9.5% was a catch up for 3 years. So it totaled 9.5%. These costs actually didn't get passed on to you guys. Aqua ate the cost, but it was back paid to 2022. So they got 3.5 in 2022, 2.5 in 2023, and the difference in 2024. So the operators actually got significant back pay checks. That cost didn't get passed on to you. Now it should go back to normal increases, like maybe whatever they negotiate, how the unions work, it's usually, sometimes it's 1%, sometimes it's 3%. It's never gonna be 9.5% again. They've seen it in other unions where they're getting significant raises to catch up for years that they didn't get anything. So in my opinion, I can't predict the future, but I can't see another 9.5%. That's kind of unheard of. And it really wasn't 9.5% in 1 year, it was back paid to 2022. And again, the municipality, we didn't recover the costs from the 2022. It was just the operators went from a certain dollar amount, and then you added those percentages up, and it equaled 9.5% in 2024.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, just to remind council that we have a legal responsibility to make sure that our system is well maintained and well operated and very functional. And that is a very strict requirement the province has to have. Any further questions? Yeah, go another one follow-up there, Martin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. On this for Laurel. Administration costs, I see Wardsville administration costs is $68,000 or something. It's higher than what it is in Lakeville, even though there's 4 to 5 times the users in Lakeville. So I've mentioned this many times over the years, but I don't see the fairness of that.
It's, no doubt, because of the system is labor intensive, but more will clarify that.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Bain, are you talking about the operational costs?
Well, Lakeville sewer expense and Wardsville sewer expense, and the administration costs, sewer administration fees.
So that the 67,500 is what you're speaking to?
Yeah, and when look under Lakeville, 64,500.
64,000.
So even though there's 4 to 5 times the number of users in Lakeville.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Administration fees, and I'm gonna look to the treasurer's office, maybe help me out here, is the staffing fees. Operationally, the breakdown. I'm sorry, I got the. It's technically just the administration fees that are breakdown. These are just previous items that we've followed through each year. But I'd have to look into it a little bit more. I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer on that one. If I knew before, I could certainly look into it and I can get a response to you.
Okay, we'll make sure that, yeah, you'll get that. I'll provide that to you down the road. Any other questions on the changes in respect to the water? And we're on slide. This is there's not a recommendation you want through this, is
There
it?
is, yes.
Okay, and the first one?
It's the second recommendation on the agenda.
All right. So,
Council.
yeah, the council, it will be required to have council staff to give staff direction on the recommendation here on water. Oh, yes, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you there, just in consulting with our staff in regards to administration fee in Wardsville, there's actually a lot more work that we do in Wardsville because of that small bore system. So with the clarifier tanks, we maintain all those tanks and pump all those tanks out. So the administration cost is a lot higher because of that small bore system. We spend a lot more time maintaining that system than we do the regular sanitary sewer system in Glencoe. So that's why the administration costs are more, because there's more permitting for the tank installation. There's more cost to maintain those tanks, and there's more staff time that's needed to maintain that system down in Woodstock.
Okay, yeah, no problem, Mike, good to see you. Mike, just to catch up on that, we're dealing with water and wastewater. Sam has provided some numbers here through Aqua, and Morrow has clarified that water system is high in administration costs because of that small bore system. There's a recommendation, council, that we approve the water and wastewater budget in principle, and any adjustments that be made. What's council's direction on this? If there are not any more questions, how does council want to proceed in that? So staff can get the direction received from council. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Hagan. Is there a second? Okay, Councilor Myers. Any discussions or any questions you wish to address to Sam or to Morrow? Okay, the recommendation again is that we approve the water and wastewater budget in principle. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? Carried. Me. And there is the next recommendation before us is council grant distribution for the 2025 budget. Is there? Okay, all right, still on that. Okay, so continue on, staff. From there, I've been looking at the slides on this, Amanda, and just to take them as they appear, we go from wastewater to operating budget updates. Okay. Okay, Mac, you drive this, Mac, and
Thank you,
advise
Mr.
council. I know you've got some new slides here, and we look forward to seeing them.
All right, through you, Mr. Mayor. Operating budget update. So over the 2-week span, there were a couple of items that we did want to take care of. One of the items was in the council grants. There was omitted $1,000 by one of the submissions. After opening up conversations with everyone, the one submission didn't look right. We went back over the numbers and said, like every year you've got 18, why 8? And then it just discovered it was a typo. So we put that up by 1,000. Working with both fire and public works, the biggest increase that's in those numbers that we see of 18,000 and 7,000 is the fact that safety inspections of the trucks are greatly increased this year. My understanding is that safety inspections, the actual inspection is more intense and requiring more time, more everything. So either gentleman beside me here can attest to that if you wish to discuss it further. And then the last thing that I wanted to note was that initially we had a tax rate stabilization reserve usage of $500,000. We've reduced that to 410 in the scenario here. 410 is still a large number in comparison to the roughly 200 that we've been using for the last 4 years. Going to the next slide on reserves. This is our list of reserves. I listed them out here simply based on size, just so that you can see where the abundance of reserve is sitting. With the OSIP funding, that is a large amount that we've not dived into, and we are going to be using extensively this year. The second item is that tax rate stabilization. This is essentially any surplus or deficit that we have every year. This grows or reduces from that. We, again, have been using roughly $200,000 a year off of that. We, in this scenario that I've come up with so far, we're using just over 400 or more thousand, that is. And then some of the other items. If we go to the next slide, is really the ones that are of importance. These are the reserves that we're going to be tapping into for our scenarios. So we'll be looking at, obviously, the OSIP we'll be using, the reserve fund for the landfills that will be used for closing of Limerick. Public works, both construction and equipment replacement, those are going to be used for tandem trucks and any other project that we've listed here in those realms. The gas tax is greatly used on the sports area because that's where we're going to be paying off the pool improvements. And then sidewalks, of course, fall towards the sidewalk program. And then I've highlighted the reserve for water and sewers in here. Not that we're going to be using them all that much this year, but really this is the chunk that we're going to need for next year when a number of our projects are going to be coming. Because the force main project, only $1 million of the $4 million is really been completed up to this year. It'll be 2026 where we're going to see a lot more need. And that's where that reserve will come in. Okay. This is just so that we all understand where we're at. We're allowed to use up to a quarter of our revenue that we bring in every year. And that limit is set at 2.8 this year. That went out as a bylaw earlier in the year. Of that 2.8 on current requirements, so this is any of our debentures in the past, that's the major list. What we're adding to the base of that item is the the debentures that we're going to begin based on the projects that are currently in the scenarios that we've got. Okay, so we've got the room, and that's essentially what this slide is about. Moving into council grants policy. Just brought up some of the council grants policy highlights here, just so that we understand what the structure is. So on a yearly basis, we will provide no more than $70,000. To any organization, no more than $20,000. When organizations request for in-kind assistance, no more than $5,000. And then I tried to highlight the in-kind support, what it's limited to. There's no cost to it because it's people that are already on staff that are doing the work. Unless it's overtime work, there really is no cost. However, we do associate that cost that would have been required to that organization in the event that they were to hire people. Okay. And then the last item on that list is that they must be a nonprofit or community group. And it says based in or connected to Southwest Middlesex. So there are times that we will provide some funding to a neighbor in that case.
Melbourne Fair or something like that.
Exactly. So looking at that policy, we noted that it's a little out of date. So we are going to be looking at this policy this year, but for this purpose of this budget, we're sticking with the current policy. But like I said, we will be reviewing it. We're looking to make more information more clear so that everybody understands how to use these grant applications. In addition to the policy update, we're also looking at working with our neighbor to the east, working on grant assistance for a shared community. Discussions have yet to begin. However, we are researching how do shared communities work with two governments behind it. And for example, Kansas City, I keep going to that and saying, you got Kansas City, Missouri, and you got Kansas City, Kansas. Well, how do they work together to make sure that their constituents of the whole city are being funded by both states? And it's the same sort of thing what we have here with Melbourne. And highlights of topics that we have to look into are asset location. You don't want to be putting money into an asset that's on the other side of the street when you don't know what happens to that asset in a couple of years. You also want to be making sure that you're not paying for something that is also being paid for by the other organization. And that's where the communication is required. And so really it comes down to making sure that you're using your dollars for your constituents. And usually this is through special events. And as we already said, Melbourne Fair is an excellent example of that. So moving into the council grants slides. The first slide, these 4 applicants have applied for many years in a row. It's roughly the same amounts every year. The only difference here is the Melbourne Ag Society has moved their annual request from 5,000 up to 7,000. And as we discussed in the last budget meeting, Stratford Paradox are already providing 10,000 on their side for this fair. I don't think that there's much more discussion that's required on those ones as they are repeat applicants. On the next slide, these are more interesting items. So you had asked for more information on these and we've done that. The highlights are here. What I wanted to point out on this slide is that the in-kind request, we already talked about the policy saying no more than 5,000, and applicants 6 and 7 both exceeded that amount. If we go into the details of each one of these, Glencoe Ag Society, they have requested the 5,000 for the equipment. We've given the pictures of the set equipment, and they've laid out exactly what they're looking for to add to their already playground area. The in-kind request there is support with making sure that it's in the right location and perhaps moving equipment. It's up to them what that in-kind is for. I think that this is a reasonable request. The next item is the Melbourne Sports Recreation Association. Their request is more or less for lights to be erected at the park. They've thrown in some costs there. They essentially said the hydro needs to be there. We're going to have Hydro One costs. They're looking for support in that nature. They're also looking for normal operating expenses like chalk and that sort of thing. And that goes back to my statement about what it is that we're supporting, because most often you don't support normal operations for these types of requests. This is more for special events. Also, Melbourne Sports are one of the ones that did go way over on that in-kind request. So I'm not sure if this is something that council will want to support. Next item is the Melbourne Tractor Fest. This is not a registered not-for-profit group. They had been working with the Melbourne Fair in the past. They're now going on their own. My understanding is that they were trying to attempt to become a not-for-profit group. There's no information saying that they've done that. They've asked for items that make sense, but their assets sitting on Stratford Paradox land, and their in-kind request doesn't match what in-kind is supposed to be. They're asking for actual assets, whereas the in-kind should be service related. Okay. The next item is the Shovel Canadian Horse Association. Again, this is a gentleman that is within the Southwest Middlesex area. He is requesting funds so that he can rent the Ag Society to host a meeting for his organization. There's not much else more I can say to this one other than we'd be supporting somebody from our area, but we'd be supporting an event that would be on the other side of the street. It's really up to council on how they feel about this one. The dollar value is reasonably low. And then the last item here that I have is Glencoe District Historical Society. they have asked for support in creating a structure within inside the arena for housing any sports memorabilia. They've estimated that this could be done for about $3,000. I don't think there's much more to go on this one. They've said that they would be responsible for changing the display, that sort of thing. It is a request that seems reasonable. In addition to this, there was one request at our last meeting as to whether we could assist with towards the old museum maintenance. I understand that there's an urgent need for repairs on the front door. Yes, our manager of facilities is here. If I could ask for any discussion on that one. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can.
Yep. Kevin, is that a hinge problem or a lock problem? What is it?
Through you, the mayor, I had staff go take a look at the door to check for if it's rotten or not on the bottom, and said the door's in good standing. It's obviously an older door because it's an older building, so it wouldn't be an insulated door. I've been told that the repairs could easily be done with some trim and a door sweep, and then some paint and some prime. Or we did get a cost on a replacement of an insulated door, and that cost would be for $1,000 for the door.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Could our own staff, could our own staff do that work if we didn't replace the door, if we just sealed it up properly?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, they've already gone to check on it. They would just have to scrape the paint off, prime it, and repaint it. And we could even touch up the window frame that's there just to kind of match the door.
Any further questions? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Mick.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I kind of disappointed the way it went. You weren't asking us to, I'd like to ask a few questions about reserves. And so we're just going right through. And one question I have about reserves, I know Mac mentioned something about tax stabilization fund. And I'm not clear, how much money are we taking out of the tax stabilization fund for this budget?
Yeah, go ahead, Mac.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, Councilor. In the green binders there, the first item in our revenue is the tax rate stabilization usage. So in the first round, we had a 500,000 usage out of that 1.1 million. In the current version, we're at, I believe it's 410. And of that 410 usage is double what we've usually been using. If you look at prior years, it's roughly been about 210, 220, somewhere in there. So it's not that we don't use that reserve. It's just that this year it seems like we're using a lot more in order to do all the extra projects that we're looking for in the capital area.
Okay, follow up, Martin, go ahead.
So the bottom line for the ratepayers is even we're gonna have a fairly large increase, plus we're taking $410,000 out of tax stabilization fund, correct?
Roughly that amount, yes.
Yeah, but depends how you define a large increase. I think in the scenarios that will be brought forward later, it's anywhere from 4 to 5%. Whether you determine that's a large increase or not is questionable, but
I do, yeah.
yeah, I'm just looking at other municipalities around us, and that's a common number that you'll see a lot of municipalities in Ontario, and some very much higher. Okay, go on, Matt. Yep, go ahead, Councilor Schulze.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wondered for Amanda, I should say, are all the grants already included in all the scenarios? So the total number is in here, so if we eliminate some, we're taking off this and that.
That's correct. Grants are connected to the project.
We're still on the discussion of
Yep.
grants.
We are.
So do we want to discuss those second 4 grand or 5 grants that I think we all agreed that the first 4 were okay? And then maybe I wonder if there was some discussion on Stratford Caradoc, but we're being asked to spend money on Stratford Caradoc, and I just wonder how everybody else feels on that. Do we want to go with that, or what?
We can, you want to take a motion at a time? Mac, that Stratford Caradoc, is that in relationship to the Melbourne festivity, or is that,
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
sorry, let's be clear. The first item is the Melbourne Fair.
yeah, okay.
The 6th item is the Baseball Association wanting to clean up the Melbourne facility so that it's more presentable, there's lights, that sort of thing. The 7th item is the Melbourne Tractor Fest, which is a new organization that they have been working with the Melbourne Fair in the past, but they're going out on their own, and they would like to have funds again to help clean up the Melbourne Fair ground area.
Okay. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I guess my point would be is we don't own that property, and we also don't know what Stratford Caradoc is proposing to put in. So I don't think we should be approving those 2 items of Melbourne Sports Recreation and Melbourne Tractor Fest at this point. For a total of 31,000.
Councilor Myers, support that in discussion?
I'll support that.
Okay. All right, so, Council, there is you're making a motion, okay? And so we had to have a motion on the floor identifying those 2 grants to hold back on without the support. And I certainly can understand the council's concern on that. Are there any questions you'd like to ask to the chair? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the recommendation that the 2 identified grants not be supported at this time? All in favor? All opposed? Carry. Councilor McCollum, I understand your concern on that too. It doesn't go unnoticed because there are people in Southwest Middlesex on the Melbourne's west end that patronize those events. So it's noted. Okay, Mac, you've got that. Council, does that, if there's no other grants identified in that, with the extraction of those 2, we can amend the recommendation.
There are some additional ones of
Yeah.
review.
Okay, for review coming up, okay, yeah, no problem. We left off at the Historical Society. Door, yeah. And, okay, Mac, any further, the slide on council grants continued, the Canada Day support, things of that nature. Just council look at that, or did you want to make a presentation to that effect?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to highlight that these are the items that have historically been supported over the years. As requested from the last meeting, we looked into the cemeteries. We are currently supporting 7 cemeteries throughout Southwest Middlesex, 2 of which are not receiving funding from us, 1 of which we already own, so that it doesn't make sense to fund. The 2 that have not been receiving funding over the past little while, they've not received any money since 2015, 1 of which hasn't received any money since 2004. At those times, there was roughly $250 being provided, but my understanding is that both of those are currently being funded through the churches that they represent. So no application has been received. It's more than, if they wish to apply, please do, but at this time, we haven't seen any history of those 2.
Yeah, That's fair analysis of that. It originally was, if a request came in, it was to address insurance costs, I believe, originally. That the funding was based on their insurance costs at one time, but it was on request. It was on request. Okay, Council, yes, go ahead.
If I may also put one more item in there. The feral cat program only occurred last year, and I'm not sure what the history of this one was. I don't know if council wishes to continue. There was no application this year, so I looked at council as to whether or not, I don't even know if the program still exists. That's the thing. So we can leave it and contact them, or we can just remove it and use that 1,500 elsewhere. So leave that up to council.
Okay, council, it depends where that money can go, whether it's for spading feral cats or there are several residences that do an outreach to feral cats, or if the request does not come in verbally or tangibly, we can use it. What is your wish on that? Silence, we can, on that.
Do we know if they applied for it last year?
Yeah, they did it last
They
year.
did it this year.
Correct. And we did it in previous years before that. Last year is the only year we funded it.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
So my understanding, sorry, through Mac, is that the only year that the feral cat program has been funded was last year. That was the first year they applied. So no previous years, and they did not apply again this year.
I'd like to know what the $1,500 is spent on. You know, if it's to control the feral cat population, I can see some advantage in that. But maintaining and feeding might be another thing that we might want to examine. Just where that money is directed. Councillor Hay, saw your hand up.
Yeah, but I have another question about on the list.
Okay, we'll get to it then. Yeah, we'll identify it and we'll visit.
Well, I'm just looking at, we give $1,000 to the breakfast program to schools, split 4 ways, which would be $250 at school, and we're giving $1,500 to the feral cat program when there's kids hungry. I'd like to see, if we're not going to do the feral cat program, I'd like to see that go to the kids. Because there is kids that are hungry,
Yeah.
kids are having a tough go. $250 at school is not very much.
No, it isn't. Okay. Yep. Councillor Myers.
Yeah, this feral cat program, if they haven't come forward and wanted $1,500, then is it up to us to call them? I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
So I think we should just take it off the list. And like what Jody said, give it to the school.
Okay, so what the chair is looking for recommendations on that to abandon the feral cat program, and we can move that money to the Breakfast Club. I'm not, yeah.
I'll make that.
Okay, all right. Is there a second for that? Okay. We'll clean that up as we go. The motion is that for the budget 2025, the feral cat program will be dropped and the funds moved to the public school breakfast and snack club. So that'll increase that from 1,000 to 4 schools to 2,500 to 4 schools. Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
I'll support this, but I just wondered, how is that money divided up between the schools? Because they're not all the same size. I'm assuming since Echo's got more kids, it probably is more money than the 2 smaller schools.
It can be apportioned, I believe, yeah.
As the note says, it's allocated proportionately.
Okay. And is there money that goes to the high school, or is it just the elementary schools?
I think it's elementary.
Just
I'm not saying there's not a need at the high school level.
It's three schools, then, I guess.
St. Charles, Mosa, yeah, Echo, yeah. Okay, motion's on the floor. Does anyone need any clarity? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, I think we've addressed two items there, the feral cat program and the school snack program. Any other items, council grants there that council would like to bring to the attention of the chair and to staff? Yes, Councilor Mink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Not to mention about cemeteries. I know North American Martyr Cemetery has always had a payment as well, and they're not listed on here. And so this additional grant, is that already in the budget? It's $28,921.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So the dollars that are on this page are in the current operating budget. And again, if I may, North American Martyrs, they were provided funds 2 decades ago, and they have not applied since.
Well, I believe they got a check, I'm sure I've seen it in the vouchers.
No,
Not according to our payable records.
yeah, no, yeah. Anyway.
And besides, I believe everybody should be treated the same way here. If we're going to provide insurance for cemeteries, then all the cemeteries should be provided.
I think it went down to like, for the size of our municipality, we were giving a substantial amount of grants for more than communities with a population twice our size. So we were not cutting any grants out. We merely changed the protocol that grants are given out on request, okay? We're not giving out gifts. We are assisting those who are asking us for help. And that was several years ago on council. And it's up to the administrative bodies and representatives of those cemeteries to notify the municipality. Example, the Murray Cemetery missed a few years of getting grants, but once they realized that grants are only given out on request, the administrative make sure on an annual basis that they request that. Likewise with other cemeteries in the community as well. But you can certainly, Councilor Mink, apprise the administration of that to put that request in, and it'll be forwarded to them. Okay, that's your prerogative. It's in your ward. You make sure that people are aware of that, and it'll be addressed. Okay, Mac, where are we from here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we'll be moving on to the Glen Cove outlet drain discussion. Oh, sorry.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Matt, and thanks through you, Mayor. I'd like to go back to grants. So there is a resolution on your agenda that does show that the council grants would be approved in principle. We have had a number of inquiries from grant applicants, being that it is mid-March or late March, about the status of their applications. So we are hopeful that council may be able to come to a conclusion on all grant awards today, if possible, or we're happy to provide you additional information if you advise us what that information would be. I understand there have been some amendments to the grants, but if council could consider if any further amendments were required before approval, or advise staff of any additional information required to assist in decision-making, we'd be happy to prepare that for future.
Okay, the recommendation before you is that council grant distribution for 2025 budget be approved in principle. There has been some changes on that in regard to the feral cat. Looking at this, the list is not long. Any further changes in this, or is council comfortable with the recommendation being accepted as amended? Yes, go ahead, Councilor McCollum.
Yes, what about the Moulton and Willie Cemetery? They're not being used, but I thought all eight were covered for insurance purposes.
Are they municipal cemeteries?
Well, we own them because.
Okay, well, we're paying the insurance on them, yeah. We don't want to give the grant too. We look after them and maintain them and pay the cost of them. Okay? There's no governing body associated with those. Councilor McGill?
I think Mike
Go
was
ahead,
right
go ahead,
first.
Mark.
Well, I just wanted to move that we approve the grants as amended.
Okay, we'll hold that motion, but we accept that motion.
I was gonna all second that.
That's great, okay. Any further discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Just one
Councilor.
quick point, I'd like to point out that's kind of caught my eye here. How can the Ag Society buy a swing for $5,000 when we're told it'd be at least $50,000 to put a swing up? It's not really a question, it's just kind of a comment.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's an accessible swing or not, is it? Does it meet accessibility standards? Yeah, there's one there that is a child swing, but it's not, doesn't appear to be fully accessible. Do you have any comment on that, Commander?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So we received the grant applications as they are submitted, and that was the amount requested by the Agricultural Society. In the presentation, Mac has included the photo as well as some of the information on the estimates. It does appear from the information that the Agricultural Society has provided that they have already secured some funding from previous fundraising. So my assumption is that the grant requested from council does not meet the full funding requirement, just a partnership grant request for consideration. Thanks.
Yeah, that clarifies that it's only a portion of the cost. Okay. Any further last call for questions on grants? The grant presentation be accepted with the amendments approved by council. All in favor? All, just put your hands up again. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? Carried. Okay. The big one, we'll go up to grade, and we'll have a couple of people involved in this presentation. Mike, thanks very much for your attendance. Okay, enlighten us on this.
Okay, I think there's a revised presentation that we brought forward. There was a previous presentation, but this one is more of a summary with more of a focus on budgeting and cost recovery alternatives. There's been some discussion on that and a request to provide that information. Currently, overall, there are 3 different types of projects that were started that are encompassed in this project as a whole. There was a petition under section 4 for the Grover drain at the north end of town, which is the very upstream end of town. There was a request under section 78 for the Glen Cove drain, and that would be the open portion. And then a petition under section 4 for the Glen Cove drain in town or on the edge of town, downstream of Dundonald, off the end of Rose Street. Noting that the existing Glen Cove drain 1947, which is direct outlet, is old and very undersized from today's design standards. So just allowing that development to connect into the old drain wasn't sufficient, so it became part of the reason for needing the improvement to the drain. We did find a note in as part of the process, there was a storm sewer that was constructed by the county in 1967 from Concession Drive south along Dundonald, turning east on the Park House down to the open portion of Glen Cove drain. So its purpose was to capture as much water as they deemed they should or could from a county drain perspective, knowing that there are a number of other side streets and areas, both county roads and municipal roads, that would tie into that sewer. And so it acts to divert water away from the Glen Cove outlet drain 1947 along the roads. That would continue to be utilized and implemented as a combined system and be utilized. Next slide. To give you a summary of some of the hydrology and design standard considerations, we did have to complete a survey and logging of most of the system within Glencoe. There are a lot of side streets and areas tributary to this. I would say mostly west of Dundonald, but they all come together and go down that main trunk storm sewer. And as it is downstream of the Grover drain, is considered to need to be designed and part of the system. Our preliminary hydrology report utilized the current standards of municipality, which would be a 2-year design storm. We did find through the analysis that the lower portion of the drain downstream of Dundonald, where the water is using both the 1947 drain and the 1967 drain, combined, they provide approximately 30% of that municipal 2-year standard. There are agencies and different municipalities that do recommend a 10-year design storm for an arterial road or a major trunk system. It was reviewed with both the county and the municipality staff that currently we should be looking at the 2-year because of the significant difference between what's there and what we're providing as a starting point. If council wishes us to investigate larger designs, we can. It's just we've not been instructed to do so. And also that the current standards are, I would say, larger than what they would have been in the past, but they do not specifically take into consideration climate change. And that is something that is becoming more present in our world today. One thing that could be done is in the future, if a larger design and a 2-year rain event is chosen, you could look at that for a future improvement if that 1967 storm sewer was ever replaced. That sewer is not new. It is functioning. We don't see any deficiencies with it, so it wouldn't be really soon that you would need to replace it. So otherwise, we would have included that now. But it could be left for a future improvement if council wishes.
Mike, just one question before coming here. Could you direct?
Remind us where that 1967 drain starts?
It starts at Concession Drive, and then it goes south along Dundonald, and then turns east onto Park House, and goes down to the open channel on the south side of Park House. So the 1947 drain goes east first, and then south through the agricultural lands. So they kind of both go in the same location at the bottom, but they take 2 different routes to get there.
Okay, Councilor Hackett, go ahead.
So, with the world we're living, so is the 2-year a Band-Aid? Like, I mean, it's not so much for me and my life, but the people that are gonna come and live, right? So, I understand the cost and stuff, but if it's a 2-year Band-Aid and we got the people behind us at this horseshoe, gotta look at it next council or 6 years from now and say, oh, well, now we're gonna do another $50 million. Can you give me an opinion on that, like your honest opinion?
My honest opinion, from someone who works in the industry, I do see rain events changing. We are getting larger rain events more frequently. I wouldn't say we're getting larger rain events that are larger than any previous rain event, but we are getting larger. The frequency between them, the Ministry of Transportation in Ontario has increased their design standards, so not necessarily changing the design standard of the design to, but they've changed what they refer to now as the 10-year storm is a bigger storm than what a 10-year storm used to be for them. Municipalities and other levels of government, counties, have not done that. They may be choosing to go to a bigger design standard instead of trying to revamp the definition of what these rain events are. I think it would be wise to consider it. There are cost implications of that. We tried to give you an idea that, you'd be looking at 19-20%, increase in flows to go to that 10-year rain event, which would be somewhere between 10 and 25% increase in cost to go to a bigger rain event. We caution people that no matter what we do as far as designing these piped systems, that some of these rain events will be larger than whatever we can put in the ground, and there will be flooding. You would hate to put all this in, people say, well, we had a big rain event and we still had flooding. Yes, you will have flooding, but it's the severity, the frequency, and the duration of the flooding that by putting bigger pipes in, you can reduce those things. So my honest opinion is I think it's wise to consider it.
I think, Mike, we've had 3 rain events in excess of 3.5 inches in the last 4 years. One of those was a 9-inch rain, so it happens, no question about it. All right, continue on.
Okay.
Michael.
You have the next slide up already. Okay, so reviewing with the county and staff, due to the large cost of the entire, it's a very long system, it goes right through town, it goes right into the main street of town. There would be significant costs to build that sewer up that street. It is fairly deep, there would be disruptions to utilities, to traffic, to physical infrastructure. And so we're looking at somewhere in the range of $10 to $15 million overall, which means that to be able to afford that, you would need to phase it and not build it all at once. By doing that, you would need to start at the bottom and most likely do the ditch work first, included with the bottom portion of the pipe. We've investigated digging an open channel in place of the original 1947 pipe, but due to landowner concerns with the disruption to the property, we have turned that to making that a bigger pipe. A steel smoothball pipe would be the most economical versus a concrete pipe. So we would be suggesting at this time that lower portion from Park House up to where Rose Street would start would be a 2100 millimeter corrugated smoothball pipe. Then you would stop at that point because of cost, and you get to the urban area, you get to hook up the storm sewers that are there. Phase 2 would replace the existing storm system upstream to the downstream side of the railway. It would go up to the intersection of Graham and Donald, and that would create an appropriate amount of cost in getting you to hook up the main sewer coming from the north side of the railway at that point. Phase 3 would be the crossing itself and maybe a short distance upstream of that if you could accommodate it all in the same year. A railway crossing itself is very expensive, and there's a lot of money that has to be spent from the safety and geotechnical point of view to satisfy the requirements of the railway. And then you could go either 1 or 2 more phases, we said phase 4 or 4 and 5, which is the remaining distance from that upstream to the north end. The pipes are smaller, but you have significant cost of installation still. It's still a deep pipe, and you still have a lot of work to do to get it in the ground. If you could go to the next page, the next slide.
Mike, just one question. It appears that from what you say, each phase would benefit the stormwater management to some degree.
Correct. And the further we go, the more improvement we can make. Phase 1 in itself would relieve a lot of the water that gets down. There's quite a big low area at the east end where Rose Street stops. That water gets trapped in there and it can't get out. It can't continue overland. So there's a lot of flooding in that particular area, but we're not going right up to Dundonald yet. So you wouldn't see the bigger improvement until you get up to the point where we're at the railway in Dundonald. Then we can hook up that pipe, divert the water that's coming from the north, divert it into the new big pipe, which will again it'll help everybody again. There's a lot of side streets to the west that have their own storm sewers that all tap into this. So every time we continue further up, we're providing more capacity for those other sewers that are coming in from the side streets. So those side streets would see improvement by having the bigger pipe along the Dundonald. It's not going to be as big of an improvement as if you went and replaced the pipes up those side streets. And someday, there will be projects where we've identified other areas on some of the side streets that are deficient that should be reconstructed and replaced and improved as well. But by providing bigger, better pipes as their outlet, those areas will see improvement as well.
And if I could, Council, one more question. This may be premature. I'll address it to Mac and Amanda. This is a very expensive project. Is there some opportunity will present itself that we can have a stormwater management fee on our water bills of some type to help finance that? Big bucks. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely. So in the budget this year, there is included a stormwater fee study process, which would potentially implement for council's consideration, provide recommendations to council for that kind of fee implementation. And I believe that is one of the funding mechanisms that I will be reviewing with council today as part of this presentation.
That's great. Thank you. And that would be applied to the urban areas that the benefit from this could be. Okay, yeah, Councilor Vic, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. On to Mike. I'm interested in how you calculate the breakdown. As you well know, the people in the rural areas pay for their own drainage. And when I see the breakdown here, the municipality pays $1,005,000 and landowners $660,000. And so that doesn't seem right to me. Because where the landowners are, it's a bigger piece of the property than where the roads are. So it's moving more water. That's how it's calculated on farms. And so I don't see the fairness of this breakdown.
Okay, if you want to maybe go to that slide, I think that's where that breakdown is. I can comment that urban drains are different than rural drains. Urban drains are typically storm sewer systems designed to generally follow road patterns. Not always, they do need to cross through private lands at times, but they are there to provide direct drainage for the roads themselves. And the roads are built there to service the community as a whole. And so in an urban setting, the amount of benefit to roads is substantially higher than it would be in a rural area. In a rural area, the roads are much smaller. They don't provide a lot of the flow that's tributary to an agricultural setting. Like a road in an agricultural setting might be 2% of the watershed. In this case, roads would be a significantly larger percentage of the overall flow that's being created. And when you construct the drains, and you're providing an outlet for storm sewers, those storm sewers that we're getting up to, when we get up to Dundonald, we're connecting storm sewers that are delivering water all along the roads and throughout the community. It's a different animal. And the assessments for that reason are different.
Okay. Thank you. One follow-up, and then I'll go on to the Deputy Mayor's question.
But still, my point is that where the houses are, is more property than the roads. So I think it should be done based on area-wise.
I think the formulas are.
Yeah, I can generally comment that there are two different types of assessment. Generally, there is benefit and outlet. Benefit is a amount of money that's charged to certain properties and roads for their use of the drain and their improvement to their properties and lands. The remaining cost is distributed as outlet, which is based on the areas. Like I said, in this case, roads do have a lot more flow from them. The amount of water coming off of road allowance compared to a residential property is significantly higher per acre than what it would be in a residential setting. So A, we have to take a certain amount of money and charge and as benefit, which is not, the areas aren't used in that calculation at all. And B, when we do distribute it, urban roads have a higher runoff, so it's not the same as an agricultural setting.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wondered if I could get Mike's, if we could get Mike's thoughts on possible options for cost recovery. I'm referring to using the drainage act as opposed to a stormwater rate.
Okay, maybe go to the next.
We're gonna talk on the financing first, but let's go through the engineering aspect of it. And we'll get to that.
Okay, so we gotta go to phase one cost. So yes, phase one was estimated roughly at $2.6 million with a breakdown between the county, municipality, railway, petitioner, landowners. There are different possibilities. We could use the Drainage Act solely as the way of doing it, doing our assessments as per the Drainage Act and recovering the cost through bylaw and assessments sent to the owners. The other way would be to fund through general taxation, and another way would be that stormwater rate bylaw, which would collect a fee on utility bills. And it's a monthly fee that would get added to either the water bill or hydro/water bill, depends on the municipality on how they build their utilities. It has become a more common method of collecting capital and maintenance costs for storm infrastructure in urban areas, especially where municipalities that have that share between agricultural setting and urban setting. So the stormwater rate bylaw would not be applied to the agricultural areas. So then you're taking into consideration that rural areas have to pay their own assessments on agricultural drainage through the Drainage Act. And so those rates wouldn't apply to that. And if I understand correctly, the municipality would have its own independent one for different urban areas.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Would you consider phase one urban or rural?
I would consider this entire drain as urban, even though the pipe is going through agricultural area. That is considered to be future development land. And the purpose of the drain is to provide storm drainage for the urban area. At that point, we're just basically transporting water from the town to the open channel.
Okay.
So we wanted to give you a little bit more discussion and some of the things to consider when you're looking at the different alternatives. If you use general taxation, you're going to have to increase taxes to cover this large project. It's a very large project to be able to do. And as we mentioned, I think it's been raised before, that by doing that, we feel that it would be unfair to the rural residents that are already paying the Drainage Act assessments. There would be benefits to it, though, that would allow flexibility to proceed through the Drainage Act or municipal storm sewers. Generally, a lot of the storm sewer work is done by the municipality as a storm sewer. If you go down the road of doing through the Drainage Act, then you're almost committing yourself to doing all of the work on all of the streets as under the Drainage Act. To be fair, and start distributing the cost to all the different side streets equally. And so by using general taxation, you could prevent sending the large bills to individual properties and just do more of a yearly thing on your tax bill. It would be slightly lower than the Drainage Act for the purpose of not having multiple Drainage Act reports. If we go through the Drainage Act and start to say that all of the side streets and all the other areas, they should all be done through the Drainage Act, you're looking at a number of reports in the future and future years. Whereas if you use other methods, including doing it as a storm sewer in the future and using general taxation, you don't need the multiple reports for some situations. You can pick and choose when you need to use the Drainage Act. Some scenarios where the Drainage Act is being recommended is, for instance, where where the county is heavily involved, and they want the Drainage Act used to properly share the cost between them and the surrounding roads and lands. So go to the next slide. This gives a sample of some of the limitations and inequities of using the Drainage Act approach. When we start to phase projects into multiple years or multiple individual projects, the issue becomes that only people who have water getting into each phase contribute financially towards that work. So in the first phase, it's good. Everybody pays towards that first phase because at the bottom is the very lower end. And so everybody's paying a relatively equal share. But if you go to the next phase then there's going to be people that are no longer tributary to that don't contribute. If you're looking at 2 phases, it's not as bad, but by the time you go to 3 and 4 and 5 phases, and you get to the 4th and 5th phase at the top, the amount of people that would contribute towards phase 4 and 5 is shrunk significantly. So there's much fewer people paying towards it. The costs are still significant. And so those assessments to the people at the very top end of Glencoe would end up paying a larger assessment by the time they add up all the phases. And in our view, that's an inequity that isn't necessarily some of the property's fault. The Glencoe itself is quite flat, and there's areas that have low-lying areas throughout the town. And just because we chose to phase the project in cost, there's an inequity now that's coming to the landowners as a result. If you could do this entire project in one phase, that doesn't exist. The issue doesn't exist. But because we can't afford to do it all, and we're starting to phase it, it does introduce inequities in our view.
Several great hands, any questions? And Mike, you're doing well, so keep pursuing this.
Okay, the downside of using the stormwater fee for urban areas is that sometimes you get resident pushback because it's a new method of collecting the quote tax, and sometimes people don't understand the alternatives and what you're forced to do if you don't use it. I have seen it being implemented over the past 10 years successively in different municipalities. It doesn't mean that you don't use the Drainage Act. The Drainage Act in some municipalities is still the preferred solution to acquire an outlet, especially when you're either reconstructing an existing drain or creating a new drain across private lands. Otherwise, you don't have the mechanisms or the strength of legislation to allow you to do that. The distribution of the cost can be dealt with by using the stormwater rate money to pay for the assessments that would have been charged to the land. So we would still calculate a block assessment. A number would exist in the report for those lands, and then the money from the rate would come and use it. And it could be used for a Drainage Act project. The money could be used for a pure storm sewer project on a side street. It's much more flexible. You're collecting it monthly every year, so then it can grow over time, and it's consistent monthly, and it's also consistent over area. So everybody's contributing in the town is contributing to it, and then the municipality can use it as they need it and feel they can afford to do certain areas. It would also potentially improve the accessibility to granting programs. The municipality could hire a consultant to make design-ready or construction-ready projects where typically if you apply for grants that may be available, that's what the upper levels of government who are providing the grants require. And you don't need to initiate a Drainage Act process to do that or worry about the cost recovery for the remaining funds. I think we'll go to the next slide. Again, we have seen municipalities apply for and receive some grants that are out there. And again, because of the phased nature of this, you have the ability to try and utilize the have a design in place and acquire some funding over time to do that. I did mention earlier that this will provide a fairly large improvement, but other side streets eventually would need to be improved. We did find deficiencies, not all streets. Some streets are better than others, but some areas of town should be looked at in our view as well. Yeah, and I think that that would be the end of my presentation.
Okay. Well, Mike, thank you very much for that. We realize the importance of it. We are certainly, any questions from council are important. Opinions less so, but questions are very important. Yes, go ahead, Councilor McGill.
Yeah, through the mayor to Mike, would you, in your opinion, should this stormwater fee, if we implemented it, should it just be for Glencoe? Or would you, are some municipalities even doing something like this and would include, the smaller areas like Appin and Melbourne?
Yeah, I haven't been directly involved. I know some perimeter information from my discussions with some staff from other municipalities, and maybe staff here might have some more answers as well. But it is my understanding that some of the other municipalities in their situation do have different rates and different setups for some of the urban areas. How small they go, I don't know.
Yes, go ahead, Amanda.
Thank you through you, Mayor. The stormwater rate study would scope that, the answer to that question. Initially, upon review of our expenses and drainage situations in Glencoe and Forestville, we would at least anticipate that stormwater rates would be reviewed and recommendations made for those communities. But we would certainly include Melbourne and other communities like Appin as well. But and recommendations would come back for council's consideration. We'd like to look at all of the urban areas not served by the traditional municipal agricultural draining process. But again, the council would have the opportunity to review both that scope, those fees, and that process at the time that project was pursued.
And Mike, just to clarify a thing, it's your opinion that if we went through the Drainage Act on this, it would be an administrative nightmare. Is that your opinion?
I think that you create, by requiring multiple phases, it does create potential issues with assessments. Using the Drainage Act and assessing individual properties in an urban area will always generate some more resistance. You may have appeals with that. It's not the end of the world. We can deal with appeals if we need to, but it does add layers of administration, and not only does it add it one time, we're not doing it once, now we're doing it multiple phases. We could have appeals multiple times. So it does add to the cost. If you feel that's the way to go, you can, and it will work. It's just, there are cautionary notes to it.
May not be the best way. And just to remind council too that, we've had, I mentioned that we've had 3 very large rains in the last several years. And there is still sea containers in our municipality in the driveways of people that have not fully restored their homes from the last flood. There was millions of dollars of damage done on that August 23rd rain of 2023. And there's still sea containers being used as a byproduct of that storm. Okay, yes, Councilor Brink.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. 2 questions. One to Mark. Have we allotted any of this $1,005,000 in this year's budget? And then if I could ask a second question at the same time, who would calculate the stormwater rates? Because you have an estimate of the cost, but every phase, the municipal cost is going to be different, I presume, and the county cost. So how would you come up with stormwater rate?
Can you handle that, Mike?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. through you. For the first question, yes, there is a lot of funds in this year's budget. It's 300,000. That's in his presentation here. So 300,000 of that 150.
Phase one is estimated at 2.6 total cost.
Yeah, so for this year's just engineering, 2026 will be where construction begins. To your second question, that goes back to the rate study. Rate study will determine what rates, where, how much, who, all that.
Okay. If I could add maybe just to the rate study, when they do the rate study, they won't be just looking at, say, the Glencoe outlet drain as a project. They will be looking at the town's needs, each town, each community, what their needs will be long-term for all the storm infrastructure. And so, like I said, for Glencoe, there's multiple streets that have been identified and will probably have to be included as future improvements to be included in that study.
Okay, yes, Councillor Hagan.
I just have one comment, so, and not to be disrespectful, but we all do it at Southwest Middlesex, so for everybody. And I realize that this is urban, but I don't have my ratepayers saying, let the rural people gravel their own roads and take it off their taxes. I think we're one unit, and it benefits everybody, and I don't like the push shove thing about, because we're Southwest Middlesex, wards or no wards. So I just want that out there. That's how I feel about this. We're a community of one. And
As Mr. DeVos said, that drainage system benefits roads as well, okay, if well, so, and we all use roads. That's one point that maybe don't look. Okay, yes, Councillor Vega.
I'm not going to let that go unanswered. My land taxes went up 300%. We're paying for our own roads completely on our own. How many times I mentioned about charge them, never goes anywhere. So we're more than paying our own way out in the country.
Yep. Councillor McGill.
Yeah, and we did see a report here not that long ago, and it showed Ward 1 pays the most in taxes, Ward 3 is second, and Ward 2, which is Glencoe, is third. So, you know, if we're bringing these stormwater fees, we have to do it in such a way that it treats everybody fairly. And we don't want a situation where basically people's taxes are higher in the rural areas to subsidize people in Glencoe.
A lot of those tax increases are based on assessment from impact, and the price of agricultural land has gone up significantly over the last several years. I agree with the statements that both of you have made, but the amount of taxes are based on assessment. And those values are high in agricultural areas. Staff will add to that, and certainly can, but I see some heads nodding. Kind of a tough subject. It is.
So that has more presentation to go through after.
Okay, yep. On this same subject of drainage and stormwater.
On moving on the budget presentation,
Okay.
so if there's no more questions for the.
Okay, and you did not want to draw a conclusion to this request at this point?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Making a decision on the funding scenario for the Glencoe outlet drain is not required today. We wanted to ensure that council had all of the information on the different funding options, the considerations, and that's why we asked Mike to attend and kind of make those outlines for us today. It certainly will be something that council will need to consider in the future, and we wanted it to be in the back of your mind, especially since you do see that this year we are, because of the petitions, we are moving forward with the design of the Glencoe outlet drain for that $300,000 allocation from our reserves, and we're required to, just as we are in the agricultural area when a petition is submitted to begin that process. And we also have an allocation included in the budget for the stormwater rate study, which we were also hoping, and I think think it did. The presentation from Mike would provide some context on why that study is required and recommended, and what kind of outcomes would be established with that study for council's future consideration.
Okay. Mac, move on to the presentation then. We will look forward to that. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the next slide here is a hypothetical calculation that I just want to throw out there so that we can understand what the impact to the ratepayer will be. Estimating that the municipal rate be increased at a 4.96 number, just putting it out there, it's close to 5. Adding in the fact that the county rate may be 4.1, we're pretty sure that's where that's going to land, but again, we're estimating. The education rate doesn't change once again for this year. And then looking at the impact of a nice round number of 200,000, which is close to the median impact value. What we would see here is the overall impact would be 4.24% if we were to go in at a 4.96 number. And that comes out to about $137 more a year or $11 a month. If we were to change that municipal rate to almost 6%, then we're looking at an almost 5% overall figure at $154 a year or $12 a month, so $1 more a month there. So just giving you that flavor of if we come in at 5% or 6%, it's roughly the same round. Looking at our neighbors, they've already come in with their numbers. Their increases anywhere between 3.9 and 4.66. Remembering that the value of their homes are different, the current rates are different, all of that, but the increase is what it is there. They're trying to strive between that 4 to 5 now. With that,
there's a question here. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I just wondered on those comparable rates, is that the blended rate with the county or is that their own, just their own standalone rate?
thank you, sir. Through you, Mr. Mayor. That is their standalone municipal rate. So not the blended with Polk County and the education. So that is their rate.
And continue on, Mac.
So in the last meeting, we looked at a few scenarios, and what I tried to do is drive some of those same scenarios, give it a bit different of a flavor, and you can see here, if we were to come in at an estimated 4.96, okay, that list right there would be included as the number of capital projects that we'd be looking at. Our tax stabilization rate will be greatly used. It's at this scenario A, it would be about $410,000 that we would be using. And that would make our overall operating budget at 7.25, I'll call it. And then the capital budget would only be just under 200,000 for all the items that are listed above. And again, that gives you that 4.96 rate. When you blend that, when you blend that 4.96 rate, you end up with an overall rate for taxpayers of 4.24%, as shown in that earlier slide, which again, $11 a month, roughly. So that's the scenario A. Scenario B would be to say, hey, you know, the 410, if we didn't take so much of that, let's reduce that. That would increase the tax rate back up, and our taxes would then be at roughly 5.95% increase if we're not using the tax rate stabilization reserve as much. That would then increase The overall rate, as I showed in the earlier slide, would be a 4.86 blended rate and just over $12 a month. But if we didn't want to put that money back in the reserve, what we could do is use that money still, but then also pave, in scenario C, we would pave the fire hall parking lot. So roughly the same difference, because the amount of money that we would reduce using in the reserve was around $64,000. Paving of the parking lot was about $63,000. Same sort of outcome. You end up with 5.85%, and as our municipal increase, which would then transfer to a 4.83, so it's just slightly lower. And again, it's still in that $12 a month atmosphere. So with C or B, you're looking at a blended rate at just under 5%.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. Mac, there's one more piece there, the deferred projects. These were projects. Could you speak to that? I know that these have not been budgeted for, but they are kind of a wish list, I guess you could refer to it as. Or Amanda, even if you would, we talked briefly about that, or Mac? Yeah, starting with there's several items in here that may be of interest to council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Continue on with the deferred items. So branding and wayfinding, we already discussed this. This is a lot of money to go into updating, things that aren't as necessary as the infrastructure. Municipal office updates, again, we don't need to be redesigning our office space as much as, again, infrastructure. Council chambers, we're functioning well. We're looking for improvements, but not this time. The paving on the fire hall, that is highlighted because it is in scenario C. Putting away more money for the Wardsville pumper replacement, it's going to happen, but essentially at this time, if you want to put the 50,000 into that reserve, you're taking 50,000 out of another reserve. So unless we want to increase taxpayers again, and that would be an extra percentage, roughly 50,000 would bring us an extra, I'll say 70 to 75% increase. Sorry, 0.75% increase. So we're going from 5% to a 5.75%.
Catch your breath, guys.
Yes, sorry. The pickup truck, again, not something that needs to be done right away. It obviously would be better if we could, but not at this time. The McMaster Place streetlight installation. This is something that we added it in before, we've taken it out because it didn't seem that there was all that much interest. There's been prior usage of the the reserve that was set for this. So I kind of questioned whether or not council really in depth really wanted to use this or not. So I've taken it off. This is one of those ones that are sitting on the fence. It could go either way. Glencoe Operations Center improvements. We had the presentation back in November timeframe about how we would like to really improve that area. It's important. Unfortunately, it's just the cost at this time is not something that we can entertain. Again, and the next item is another pickup truck. We can wait on that hopefully another year or so. An important one is the capital roads improvements. We're moving this to 2026, but again, this is a very important item. This is the paving of Park House from Tower Street, thank you, up to Tate's Road. We've put this off for now, but it will have to happen eventually. Just need to find the funding for it. Fire station design fund, again, you're essentially moving reserve money to reserve money or increasing taxpayers. For this item, the rubber on the pickleball and baseball diamonds, we put that off. I think that is level of service not required at this time. The holiday decorations, again, something very nice to have, however, infrastructure seems to be more important. And then the last item is the top dresser. This is a machine for seating and doing and whatnot. Again, an item that could be on the fence. We decided to pull it out for now, but it could very well go back in.
Thank you very much for that. There'll be some, I'm sure, questions from council. Councilor Myers, you lead us in that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This McMaster Place streetlight installation, I believe that this happened, this came about, what was it, it was before my time, I believe. So I think they've been waiting for this for quite a while. And I drove by there that night, yeah, the only one was in there. So it's a, you know, it's a street, and I think it needs some lights, in my opinion.
It's pretty dark, no question about it. I thought that was a very competitive price, Marlo, when I saw that, for that work, and that's a fairly current estimate, isn't it?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, when it was brought to my attention that this was a previous council resolution, there was a budget that was a lot lower, and I did get a revised price from the local contractor in town here to look at it to ensure that we had an accurate price for budgeting.
All right, that's good. Okay. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Councilor McGill.
Yeah, scenario C includes that item number 5, paving of the fire hall. I wonder if the chief could just tell us if that is even appropriate at this time, because I think is there not going to be the old geothermal going to be torn out, and maybe the ground will be kind of soft back there behind the fire hall.
Go ahead, Chief.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor for your question. I believe that is part of the project. I am going to talk to Kevin on this one because I did not do that part of the project. Kevin, are you able to answer this at all?
Yeah, part of the paving is filling in the wells that are in there, and then with gravel or concrete, whatever they use to fill it in, and then the paving will be on top of that. That's all part of the paving project.
Does that clarify your question, Councilor McGill?
Yeah, okay, and can I ask
Yeah,
one question?
no problem.
I wondered if what would happen if in scenario A, we added back in number 10, the McMaster Place streetlight installation, which is shown as almost 40,000 coming out of the tax base. What would that make our tax rate increase be? And also taking into account that we took out some things under grants and donations, which were a very similar amount.
31,000 grants.
Yeah.
I think the process is important, Council, that we can, take things out that you think we can do without in this budget this year. And if you have any passions or you think there's high needs, we can slide something back in. Just a little bit of horse trading here, and I think that's what makes a good budget. And it does provide with staff direction. Okay, this is what we must seek. Okay, that's a question, Mark. You just directing it to Mac, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. You're essentially asking for $40,000 to be added back in, and we're looking at 1% increase would be around 73, 74, so 40, that's about half, so you're looking at 0.5% more. Every 0.5% that you want to add back in is roughly another $1 per month per constituent, like that on a $200,000 home.
Yeah, but
So-
we took out 31,000.
Yeah, if
We're at
if we're talking about a
94,
net
so-
number, it's not worth talking about percentages and what it is.
I'd
It's a small
like-
number.
I'd like to be able to keep it below 5%. I think we're very close.
Yeah, I think that could be a possibility. Amanda, did you agree on that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I just wonder to our treasurer if you could bring up your Excel document or if you would be able to work on that number for Councillor McGill while conversation continued. So we can have an exact number with the removal of the operating impact of the grants removals and then also the inclusion of McMaster Streetlights.
Yeah, just give me 1 second here.
Okay, Mac is working on some numbers, council, and
While you're doing that, we do need a motion to receive and file the presentation. To receive and file the presentation as information,
okay.
and if you wouldn't mind.
No, not at all.
We can still continue our discussion.
Yep. So council, we're not validating any numbers, we're just receiving Mac's presentation for information. Is there a mover and a seconder on that? And we'll continue on. Yes, Councillor Myers, Councillor Hagan. All in favor? Carried. Heather, just let me know if you need something there, okay? And Councillor Link, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't quite clear what we're doing here. Are we just removing the grants that we didn't receive application from?
We're not doing anything right now, we've got a question here, it's been levied, and Mark's gonna get an answer on that, and then we'll see if we wanna proceed with some action on that. Councillor McGill, is it your intention to like net the grants at zero, or? Okay, yeah, if you could provide some
Go ahead.
clarification on that.
Thank you through you. So as per my understanding, Councillor McGill is seeking an updated tax rate impact number for the scenario where the previously approved 2 grants in Melbourne were removed from the council grants, totaling, I believe it was 31,000. So those are removed from the operating budget. And then in its place, the McMaster streetlights are added into scenario A. So there will be a reduction in council grants of 31,000 and then a comparable increase to that approximately 40,000 not funded by reserve for McMaster Place. So Mac's just working on those numbers so council can have the live tax consideration number today.
Thank you, Amanda, that clarifies it very well.
Excuse me, I'm still not clear on this. 2 Melbourne grants.
Can you turn
Turn your mic on.
Sorry, 2 Melbourne grants weren't included. We already wrote them off, 16,000 to 15,000.
Thank you. You are correct. In the scenario A budget and in all of the scenarios before you, the total amount of council grants was included in the operations budget. So the removal of those 2 grants from Melbourne actually creates a reduction in the operational budget. So we want to ensure that that reduction in the operational budget is accounted for in the net tax increase that is presented to you. So you're correct, we're just updating the numbers because they were previously included.
But on the chart here, it has 0. It's pretty hard to follow.
On the chart, it is 0.
You're referring to scenario A, right?
Yeah, I'm saying council grants drop, but,
Because there's nothing in that column.
right.
He's saying because the column on the far side says previous year. That's right. That's previous year.
Those are all.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
so
so
that's requested, so that doesn't mean that, I don't, when something's requested, doesn't mean that it's in the budget.
understood. Thank you for that clarification. Through you, Mayor, All of those grants shown on slide, let me just see here. Slide 18, the ones that were not received, all of those were included in the grant allocation and are included in our budget profit numbers. Same and except the feral cat program, which, as you recall, council approved a resolution to reallocate that. But the total of those grants is also included in the budget. So the only change to the grant numbers have been the change to the feral cat program, and then also the two Melbourne grant removal.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Why not, I had some pretty serious reservations about the stormwater rate study. I believe introducing new tax for rate centers on the utility bills. And I really don't think that's going to go well.
So, that's an opinion, but the reason we're doing this is to prevent flooding in individuals' homes, and that doesn't go very well either.
No, I'm well aware of that, but we can also use the Drainage Act, which is already available to us.
And it would still result in monies from our ratepayers, and it may pose an administrative rate here as well. So anyway, Councillor, welcome to opinions, and we know that there will be differences in opinions. Okay, Mac, how do you make it up there?
Very good, sir. So if I were to change the two items that were approved or were requested on scenario A, you're looking at, first of all, we are making a reduction of the 31,155. That goes away because of those two council grant items that we removed. Taking that 31 away, but adding back 39,9 number. Sorry. I get the exact. Yeah. 39,667. We add that back in. It's roughly, because you're reducing the 31, you're adding in 39, net impact of around $8,000. $8,000 on a $7 million budget item, budget total, excuse me, less than a percentage, really. So your 4.96 rate that we were looking at becomes a 5.08 rate. And then you take that 5.0 rate, it really doesn't change the rate all that much here. For your blended, you now go to 4.32% versus 4.24% on it.
Thanks, Mac, that clarifies that. Yeah.
And on a monthly rate or increase, you're going from $11.23 to $11.42.
Okay, so it's 20 cents a month. Okay, which is fairly minimal. Mark, does that answer your question then, satisfy you? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, and I'd like to know what other councillors think of that idea. I mean, I have reservations about the stormwater rate study too, but I'm afraid maybe more could come on this a bit more. How likely, if we try to do this through the Drainage Act and say somebody, there's so many people involved when it's in Glencoe, right? What happens if somebody decides, hey, I don't like this, I want to appeal it? Like, how much could we be looking at delaying this whole project? Because I think it says in these slides, anticipated doing phase 1 in 2026. Like, I could think of McLean Switzer drain. That's one drain that we had, it's up in the country, but neighbors got disagreeing on what should be done there, and I think it was over 9 years before that drain was constructed. And then in the end, it went ahead anyway.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Gill, it's a great question, and it's an unknown answer, but with the amount of ratepayers that would be assessed to that first portion would delay the project a long time, because going through the appeal process and then re-engineering, in speaking with Mike and George at Streets, they they think that it's almost, it will, somebody will appeal the project because there's so many assessments that they're going to be there, and they think it's going to be an administration nightmare in order to go through the Drainage Act. Now, we certainly can do that process, but like you said, we don't know how long that time's going to be. If it was just 9 years for the Switzer drain, and I don't know how many people were assessed to that project. There's almost, this is most of Glencoe that will be assessed to this. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it will delay the project a long time.
And you, can I ask one more
Yes.
question? You can't really proceed with the drain if it's under appeal, can you?
That's correct. You have it right.
I think council wants to look at the efficiencies of achieving an outcome. And we're, council hasn't been informed that that remains an option to go through the Drainage Act, but it creates great inefficiencies. In my opinion, and I can give it, there's certainly the councillors give opinions around this table today. And that's mine, that it would be an administrative nightmare. Okay, yes, Councillor Big.
Mayor, we're really not deciding that today anyway.
No, we're not.
Whether it's stormwater or drainage.
We're not. But we're approving this stuff. Okay.
Well, no, I agree with the stormwater, with the applying. Because, just like Councilor Gill mentioned about Beal, somebody's gonna get one heck of a bill here on that first phase. You can guarantee there's gonna be an appeal. So, it's just a matter of, figuring out the stormwater rate.
That's why this study will be important. It reflects its importance. Okay. Yes, Councilor McGill, and there's other questions.
Well, just one more comment. We've talked about the administration. I think there's still going to be a lot of administration though, because somehow these stormwater rates are going to be somebody's going to have to calculate how much they need to be to recover all the money for this drainage work. And that won't be an easy job.
Yeah, well, our software programs will help to some degree of that. Any comments? You okay? All right. We were just to refocus. We're talking about McMaster Place street lighting that takes something out and put McMaster Place in. Is there something that says Councilman Myers brought that to the table? Do others feel that should be an entity that we should seriously consider? And Councilor Myers, to proceed with that, you would take out the paving of the fire hall parking lot, is that correct?
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's already,
It's already out.
okay. And it's not in C though, is it? Okay, all right, yeah, that's what you're adding it, master to A. Okay, we're working on a scenario A. Is there anything on that wish list I can ask council on those deferred projects? Do any stand out? Okay, nothing? No other inclusions? The master streetlight installation are the only ones that you wish to consider? Yep, Councilor Link, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to point out there, when we're approving or disapproving the budget, deferred projects, we put in a couple things in deferred projects that we're going to have to pay for later on in the future. So this is kind of a little bit of a misleading budget for the ratepayers.
What we've done is we have focused on infrastructure, which is important. And our intent is not to deceive the public. It's just that we can't do everything at one time. And some projects will take priority. And we'll advance those, and those with less priority will be referred to as deferred. Okay. Council Chair, I'd like to make some traction on this. The next recommendation before council is that we adopt the operating capital budgets. and approved supply law, the 2005 budget to be brought by council. It's important that our capital projects be addressed. We want to get tenders up for those. And Amanda, can you give the chair some direction on how you'd like to proceed from here?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor, to council. Thanks, Mac. That concludes our budget presentation for today and all of the scenarios. So the scenarios before you were the ones we brought for your consideration, and the intent, as the request was exactly to be able to move things around as per council direction. So in terms of next steps, council has a few, two options really before them today. You can, of course, discussion and feedback on the budget and deliberations in and out. We're happy to discuss today and take your direction. We have put on the agenda, if council was comfortable, the potential motion to approve the budget as amended, of course, or as directed by council. So that is an option today. If council was comfortable to approve one of the scenarios or the amended scenario, we'd be happy to entertain a motion. The other alternate, of course, is for council to provide direction to staff on what else they'd like to see. So as you know, we do not have a third budget meeting scheduled at this time. So if we had another meeting, we would have to work with everyone to schedule that. But in order to schedule that, we would be seeking some clear direction on what council actually is intending to see at the next meeting to make sure that we are set up to deliver and meet your expectations. So happy to turn it to you, Mayor, for any motions from the floor to either of those options. And of course, staff are here to answer questions and facilitate and support as needed.
I think Councillor McGill's comments were to keep that blended tax rate under 5%, which is possible with the suggestion brought forward. I'd be amiss if I didn't mention one of the top dressing soil and grass at Simpson Park at $25,000. I'm surprised that wasn't brought up by other councillors. There's some serious turf management problems in Simpson Park. And $25,000 in the context of our budget is not a lot. And that is the busiest park in Southwest Middlesex. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. That top dresser, $25,000 in deferred projects, is not specific to Simpson Park. It is a piece of equipment that could be used at all Parks and Rec facilities, and has been deferred. So sorry, I just wanted to provide that clarification.
All right. Okay. All right. Council, what's your wish? Do you want to receive this for information, do further consultation and study, and come back to another budget meeting? Should we do that, staff are awaiting some recommendations from council. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe kick it off, I guess. To me, 5% is too high. We're taking $400,000 out of reserves, which is twice what we normally do. I go through the different department budgets, and I know there's not a taste here to go line by line through this binder, but I see 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 everywhere, and I'm just wondering how accurate all of those prices are, and if the department heads couldn't squeeze a little bit out of those departments.
Yep, I'll leave that to Amanda and back to answer.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So the operating budget before you is based on a rolling review of previous annual budgets, expenses, and revenues, as well as anticipated increased costs, things like wage changes, cost of living increases. For example, the increase that was made since the last meeting is related to the increased costs associated with inspections of large equipment, so those certification inspections. So staff make their best effort to provide a balanced budget that does have the underlying intent of saving money. So in our opinion, we put the best budget forward from an operating perspective that for council's consideration. If there are specific questions about specific line items, we're happy to answer them for your information.
Bill, the chair agrees with that. I have been in consultation with Amanda throughout this budget process, and I know that they have sharpened their pencil on many things. And Matt can attest to that too. Any further comment, Matt?
No, thank you, Mayor. She hit it on the head.
All right. Okay. Councilor Haggett?
I don't have any problem with 5% or 5.1. I think in the past years, different councils, they didn't keep up with the increase. I think it should have been a percent more probably every year. And that's basically why we're trying to catch up on everything. So last year we were 3, what were we, 3, 4? 3, 4? So I think 1 year, this would not bother me to catch the.
Yeah. Last year, our acceptance was higher than 3.9, but there were some unexpected funds that came through after council approved that budget, and that's why it was reduced. There, I remember Kristen received some grant that made that tax rate a little more competitive that came in afterwards. Council's decision. Councilor McGill?
No, I think 5% is too high, but I look at all the stuff we're deferring, and if we get it down below 5%, we're gonna have to defer even more. So that's not a good thing either, because there's things on that deferred list that are gonna need to be done, like roads need studied, 650,000. That's all repairing roads, and we're deferring it all. And I was down Old Drive a few days ago. We did it, I think about 6 years ago, from Thames to Dundonald. It's starting to break up again. Morrow tells me Chartership roads only last, what, 6 to 8 years?
6 to 7 years.
Yeah, and then you have to redo them. So I guess I'll see where this goes, but I will move that we approve scenario A, but add in the project number 10, McMaster Streetlights. And that should give us a tax increase of about 5%.
Okay. Councilor McGill, it takes courage to do that. We appreciate it. You'll second that?
I just want to ask you a question.
Yes.
So, rumor has it that Middlesex County State will be taking partners over for the 401 to allow our services.
I just run that by me hearing. I lost my hearing.
I heard a rumor that Strathroy Carol's giving back Park House to the county from off the 402 right through the mountain.
I have not heard that. I have not heard that. No, if it has not come forward yet. So, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I can speak that through the mayor to Councilor Haggard. So I sit on the road assumption committee with the county engineer, and there were recommendations put forward for county road assumption. And part goes to Adelaide, I think it is. It's the small piece right off the trail. Yeah, I forget what road that is, but it's the small piece there that's being recommended. There was also Cherry Hill in Thames Center, and then there was a third, and it's slipping my mind right now. We did put forward through through Southwest Middlesex, Park House Drive, between the two county roads, and we also put forth Pratt siding between the two county roads, but those didn't make it due to the traffic volume that's on those roads. Now that is just a recommendation for now. It hasn't been approved just yet, but it's but that small section was being considered.
Okay, so in the process of consideration, it has not been approved by county council. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there indicating that we are considering section A, the amendment, scenario A with the amendment of the inclusion of McMaster. In that, there's been a mover on that. Is there a seconder for that at this time? Okay, Councilor Myers. Okay, are there any questions, or does anyone need any clarification on this? Yes, yeah. No problem. Recording vote. So Mac, just a question on that while we're waiting. Are we tipping over 5% on that, or are we just under?
Thank you, sir. Through you. That number, as we just discussed, I calculated at 5.08% as a municipal rate increase.
Yeah.
And then that transferred to 4.32% the blended rate.
4.32. Yes, Kendrick? Okay. All right, anyone need clarification before the vote is called? Okay, Kendrick, take it away.
Deputy Mayor?
No.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Councilor Emery?
Yes.
Councilor McGill?
Yes.
Councilor Myers?
Yes.
Councilor Bennett?
Yes.
Councilor McCallum?
No.
Councilor Link?
No.
5-4.
Good pass. Okay. All right.
5-3.
Sorry.
Okay, so, recommendation 14, does that address it, or is that an addition?
Nope, that addresses that.
That addresses that, okay. Council, any unfinished business you'd like to report? Seeing no hands, there's a bylaw 6-1, referred to as 6-1, to confirm a special budget meeting. And, that the council municipality of Southwest Middlesex give a first, second, and third final reading bylaw 038 is listed. Is there a mover and a second for that? In relation to the bylaw? Okay, second, moved by Myers, seconded by Councilor Haggett. Bylaw be construed. All in favor? 4. All opposed? Carried unanimously. Nothing happens without the bylaw being adopted. It has been adopted. Mac, I want to thank you very much for that presentation. Amanda, thank you for your guidance on that. Laurel and Chief, you got my utmost sympathy on that parking lot. So we'll get you down the road, okay?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You knew it was going to go this way.
You had a premonition, did you? Thank you. We have one more item to address council, that's adjournment. There's someone that would move that we adjourn the meeting at 11:45. So move for that, please. Yeah. Councilor Bing, second by Councilor Myers, all in favor.